The Philadelphia Eagles are currently operating with a level of ruthlessness we have not seen in years inside the NovaCare complex. My sources are telling me that the front office has essentially declared open season on the cornerback room, and the fallout is going to be absolutely massive for some fan favorites. This is not just a standard training camp competition. It is a fundamental shift in how Howie Roseman views the long-term stability of this secondary. Before we dive into the specific names that are on the chopping block right now, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like this video to stay updated with every single Eagles move this season. Tariq Woolen is the catalyst for a total defensive transformation that has left the Eagles' depth chart in a state of absolute chaos for those fighting for the final spots. When the Eagles secured Woolen, they did more than just add a high-end starter. They created a dominant top 3 rotation that effectively slams the door shut on developmental projects. I am hearing from scouts inside the building that Woolen's physical presence has been so disruptive and impressive that it has forced the coaching staff to reconsider their entire approach to the nickel and safety packages. This addition allows the defense to get incredibly creative with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, potentially moving DeJean into the slot or even back to safety in certain base packages to maximize the speed on the field. However, this level of elite talent at the top of the roster creates a massive logjam that the team simply cannot ignore as they trim down to the 53-man limit. The front office is now prioritizing high-ceiling starters over those developmental depth players who have not quite panned out as quickly as the organization hoped for during their initial draft process. It is a win-now mentality that is putting immense pressure on every single defensive back currently wearing a midnight green jersey. We are looking at a situation where players who were considered locks for the roster just a few months ago are now looking over their shoulders every single day at practice. The level of competition has been described to me as surgical, with the staff looking for any reason to keep the most versatile athletes while letting go of traditional role players who lack that elite athletic profile. This creates a terrifying reality for a specific young defender who was once seen as the future of this secondary. But now he might be the one looking for a new home before the season even kicks off. This roster battle is getting intense, and someone is definitely losing their job very soon. Who do you think the Eagles should keep in this secondary? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now because I want to see if you agree with what the front office is planning for these final cuts. Kelee Ringo is now the player facing the most significant threat to his job security, following this aggressive defensive overhaul. Despite his impressive draft pedigree and the flashes of brilliance we have seen, Ringo is currently struggling with massive consistency issues and a high volume of penalties that the coaching staff simply will not tolerate in this new regime. My sources indicate that the front office is becoming increasingly frustrated with the lack of technical progression, especially when compared to the immediate impact of the younger rookies like Mitchell and DeJean. At this point, Ringo is essentially relying on his special teams value to survive the upcoming roster cuts, but even that might not be enough to save him if other players prove more versatile in coverage units. The team is also closely monitoring Jacorian Bennett and the recent signing of Jonathan Jones, who are now locked in a direct, head-to-head battle for what might be only 1 or 2 remaining spots in the cornerback room. It is a high-stakes game of musical chairs where the music is about to stop for someone very talented. Even Mac McWilliams, a former 4th-round pick that the team had high hopes for, is now facing a potential redshirt exit if he does not show immediate and drastic improvement during the final preseason evaluations. The reality inside the building is that the Eagles are no longer interested in waiting for players to develop if they cannot contribute to a Super Bowl run right now. The pressure on Ringo specifically is at an all-time high because his physical tools are undeniable, but his mental lapses on the field have created a trust gap with the defensive coordinators. If he cannot prove that he can play clean, disciplined football under the bright lights of training camp, the Eagles are prepared to move on in favor of veteran stability or higher-ceiling prospects who are ready to play. This is a cold, hard business, and Ringo is currently finding out exactly how quickly a depth chart can shift when the organization decides to go in a more aggressive direction with their defensive personnel. The impact of these decisions stretches far beyond just the cornerback room and signals a massive shift in how the Philadelphia Eagles are building their roster for the next 3 years. General Manager Howie Roseman has clearly decided that the middle-of-the-road depth is no longer sufficient for a team with championship aspirations. By bringing in a talent like Tariq Woolen, he has effectively raised the floor of the entire defense, but in doing so, he has made it impossible to keep developmental pieces like Kelee Ringo or Jacorian Bennett if they are not performing at an elite level. We are seeing a front office that is prioritizing immediate impact over potential, which is a departure from their previous strategy of drafting and stashing young talent. This move allows Vic Fangio to be much more aggressive with his defensive schemes, knowing he has 3 high-end corners who can survive on an island. However, the risk here is that the Eagles might be cutting ties with young players who could blossom elsewhere, just to secure a slight upgrade in the short term. The locker room is definitely feeling the tension as veterans realize that no one is safe from the roster axe this year. Looking ahead, if the Eagles do decide to cut Ringo or Bennett, expect them to be active on the waiver wire or in the trade market to further solidify the safety position, especially if they decide to keep DeJean in the slot permanently. The ripple effect of the Woolen signing is touching every corner of the defensive meeting room. We are witnessing the birth of a new, more aggressive defensive philosophy that demands perfection from the secondary. If you are not a starter or a primary backup with special teams dominance, you are essentially a luxury the Eagles can no longer afford to keep on the payroll. The next few weeks will be the most stressful period of these players' careers as they fight for survival in a room that just became the most competitive in the entire NFL. The decisions made in the next few days will define the defensive identity of this franchise for the entire 2024 season and potentially beyond. What this ultimately means for the Philadelphia Eagles is that the era of being patient with underperforming draft picks is officially over. This organization is in a championship window and they are acting like it by making these brutal roster decisions early. The addition of Tariq Woolen wasn't just a move to get better. It was a message to the entire league that the Eagles are willing to sacrifice their own draft investments to ensure they have the best possible talent on the field at all times. For the fans, this is both exciting and terrifying. It means the team is better today, but it also means we might see some talented young players that we've rooted for walk out the door and find success with our rivals. The reality is that a roster logjam of this magnitude is a high-class problem to have, but it requires a high-stakes solution that will leave some people unhappy. Howie Roseman is betting that his ability to identify top-tier talent like Woolen will outweigh the loss of developmental depth. If Ringo or Bennett find their footing elsewhere, critics will point to this moment as a failure in player development. But if this secondary becomes the shutdown unit that many insiders expect it to be, this will be remembered as the masterstroke that returned the Eagles to the top of the NFC. The stakes couldn't be higher for everyone involved in this process. As we move closer to the final cuts, every snap in practice and every rep in preseason games will be scrutinized under a microscope by a front office that has lost its patience for mediocrity. This is the most fascinating roster battle I have covered in my time with the team, and the outcome is going to change the face of the defense. Do you think the Eagles are making a mistake by potentially cutting these young players? Or is this exactly what a Super Bowl contender needs to do to stay on top? I want to hear your takes in the comments below because this is a defining moment for the franchise. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our breakdown when these cuts finally become official. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep it locked right here for the best Eagles coverage. Fly, Eagles, fly!